Welcome to the WXYZ Sports Digital Lunch. I am your host, Justin Rose. Each and every Monday from 12:30 to 1:30, we chat about the ongoings of Detroit sports, joined today by Detroit Sports Podcast contributor Adam Strozynski.
Thank you, sir.
What's up, man?
It's good to be back,
Good to be back. 2 weeks ago he was here. He's back again. He impressed in his first go-around. He's here again. And we've got quite a bit to talk about today. Obviously, Michigan State is no longer undefeated, and we'll go into many reasons why that is the case. Michigan with another impressive win, continuing to kind of, I would like to say, lay in the weeds right now. They're a team that's kind of positioning themselves to potentially have a really big moment towards the end of the season if they continue to do what they've been doing. And then, of course, the Lions cleaned house last week. Jim Caldwell's currently, that's exciting news for most Lions fans. Jim Caldwell's currently at the press conference that we will see his tweets as they come across. And we're joined as well by Max White over there, our digital producer on the show. Max.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon. You were at the Michigan game on Saturday. Did you have a good time?
It was fun, yeah.
Who'd you go with?
I took my younger brother, Joe. His first Michigan game.
Shout out to Joe.
It was fun. It was a long game. We left midway through the fourth quarter. You know, it was 49 to 16.
Not a diehard.
Come on.
Not a diehard. Just saying.
We were there at 1 o'clock.
We wanted to beat the traffic.
Oh, we beat that traffic, too. I got home in an hour and a half. It was great.
It's not that bad.
Hey, you know when you watch this live streaming, you have like the voice of God. You were like off screen, but like you just come through just booming.
They want to put a camera on me, but I respectfully decline. I'm sure there'll be a camera on me eventually.
Come on now.
I give it a few weeks, you'll see what I look like, and the whole Lions tattoo thing too.
We're not getting started with that. We are going to start with Michigan State. We'll get into Michigan next, and then in the second half an hour, we're going to dive into the Lions, simply based upon the Lions had a bye week this week, so they didn't actually play a game. I want to talk about the most recent games. They did win the bye week.
Yes.
Technically, they even destroyed the bye week by firing the general manager and the team president.
The bye was favored by 14.
That's what I was going to say.
Favored by 14.
Before I miss this tweet, I do want to say it about the Caldwellism of today. This is by Tori Petrie, the team sports reporter. There are two Chinese characters that mean crisis together, but they also mean opportunity. He says that's where the team is at. So the team is somewhere between crisis and opportunity, according to Jim Caldwell, and I'll be in the locker room later this afternoon trying to figure down what's the players' reaction to this. All right, again, let's start with the Spartans because I think that's one of the more gravity-pulling topics of the weekend. Look, they go into Lincoln, Nebraska. What a tough, no matter what team rolls out there, they've won 15 straight night games. They don't lose at Memorial Stadium very often at all, really. And Michigan State had an opportunity. They go up 12. And then they don't play to win.
Up 12 with 4 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
A vintage, can we say vintage MSU team? I would say maybe an MSU team from the last 5 years or so would normally have shut that down and sealed that deal. Mm-hmm. And when MSU would have went on undefeated, and it would have looked good. But that defense looked awful on Saturday.
Yeah.
Anything Nebraska wanted to do, they just ran up and down the field on them. And they hung all kinds of points on him. It was unbelievable. It was not like watching, I guess, what Mark D'Antonio has put out time and time again.
The defense is not what it was. When you talk about vintage MSU, it's okay to call them vintage for the past 8 years under D'Antonio.
For
really. But those vintage defenses, hampered by injuries this year, but they weren't, even if they had all of their starters, weren't going to be as good as the defense from 2013. I think we can all agree that was one of the best defenses, especially statistically, the Michigan State's ever seen since like the 60s. And that was a much different game back then than it was this time around. So, look, I'm throwing this one on the coaches. I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, you got a bye week. You had that whole week to get healthy. You didn't really do anything on the field related. You kind of stayed loose for the bye week, and then you come back to practice, and there's no reason that they should have gone into that game with anything less than supreme confidence that they were going to win that game. And I remember watching the first quarter, Connor Cook was off.
I was going to say.
Not very good.
The biggest detriment was probably that first quarter watching that offense.
Yeah.
Because that offense sputtered right out of the gate. Mm-hmm. Connor Cook looked sloppy. And everybody in that offensive line came back healthy, right?
Right. So you should have been able to move the pile.
Exactly.
Your run game should have been able to give you something, and it didn't. I'm going to pull up some of the stats here as I continue to.
They had trouble converting on third down, which was atrocious for them, and that's what kind of got them behind the 8 ball a little bit early. And I think once Nebraska kind of took a lead initially in that first quarter, I think at that point MSU was kind of like, all right, well, what are we doing now?
Well,
Like, this is different.
when you spot a team 10 points, no matter who it is, you spot a team 10 points. That's 10 points you got to make up, and that no longer. If you keep that 0-0 through the first quarter, Michigan State wins it by 10. You take away the 10 points. That's a huge difference. I mean, the running game had some success. 143 yards. Gerald Holmes had a big day, 117. But you have to look at this game simply from the fourth quarter, the 4 minutes on, as you're saying. Nebraska goes down, scores a touchdown, so they're only down by, 4 at that point. And then, no, 5. They were down by 5. They were down by 5.
It was about 5, yes.
Because they went for 2 and they didn't get it.
Yep.
They're down by 5, and you get the ball at the 40-yard line, and you run 3 straight run plays, and you gained a -1 yard.
And here's the thing. At that point in the game, I understood what they were trying to do. You're trying to milk the clock. You're trying to work it down. But it wasn't working. Your passing game worked the entire day.
You could do, and you want to talk about Nebraska being
the ball all over the place.
Nebraska wanted to do whatever they wanted to do to the defense.
Yeah.
The only thing Michigan State couldn't do, and here's the thing: when you're in a fourth quarter situation and you have a couple minutes, literally, you get a first down, that game is over because there was no timeouts left. You get a first down, the game is over. And I understand the philosophy is, well, let's keep the clock running. Okay, do that by completing like a screen pass or doing that by a swing out pass where you have an easy little dunk. If he gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage, the clock still runs. It's a pass, but it still keeps the clock running.
And that's the same thing. You can take a sack too. You just don't throw the ball away.
Exactly. And it breaks my heart for Michigan State. But here's the thing about that game that I want to move forward from it. And look, the call is what we'll get into next. I think it was just garbage. The garbage call, the out-of-bounds thing.
Yes.
But at the same time, Michigan State didn't deserve to win that game by any stretch of the imagination. So I don't want to paint this picture like they did get jobbed on that call, but they also had the ball with 17 seconds to go, and they mismanaged clock there. And
even
they had
after that botched call, they still had a chance to win the game.
Right.
And you had 4 seconds left on the clock, and you basically ran a 10-second play just to throw it out of bounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what are you doing?
It was not well
just
executed
fight the ball
down
and
the
go
stretch.
kick the ball. That's all you got to do.
Yeah. So, well, the kicking game has been suspect all year.
It has. But you know what they hit? What did they hit? I think it was a 47-yard field goal that game. That's something that you haven't been able to say about this MSU team all season. You're right. That kicking game has been brutal. Absolutely brutal. But they were able to kick a field goal that game, and they looked solid. So you need to win the game, right?
Right.
And unless you're going to throw a Hail Mary, just run your kicker out there. Just give it a shot.
Yeah.
I mean, you live by it, you die by it.
Sure.
Maybe you live to fight another day.
But here's the thing about the team moving forward is in no stretch of the imagination is Michigan State out of the Big Ten race.
No.
They had to win in Ohio anyway to be able to go to the Big Ten championship game. So their goals are clearly still in front of them. They own the tiebreaker over Michigan, and they need it now. This goes into the bigger conversation, which is the college football playoff. But that conversation is no longer something that we can talk about right now because they have to take care of their business in the Big Ten East before we can even talk about the Big Ten championship game, before we can even talk about the college football playoff. You have to take things through stages. And Mark D'Antonio has done a really good job, especially over this year, of saying, take care of what you can control, which is the next game. Because if you don't win the Big Ten, you ain't getting in the college football playoff anyways. And a lot of people in the beginning of the season thought Michigan State and Ohio State were going to be so good that if they both went undefeated up until their game and then Michigan State, say, were to have lost, that Michigan State still had a chance to make the playoff. Nah, that ain't going to happen because no two teams from the same conference are getting into the college football playoff, no matter what. Yeah. That's just not happening. Now, again, when you talk about that CFP, if you will, college football playoff. Yeah, that was good.
I like that. It's good.
Yeah, shorts it down. You have to take into effect that Notre Dame is still alive. That is a non-conference team, and there are 5 power conferences in Notre Dame. So you got 6 potential players. 2 are going to be left out. Now, if Michigan State wins the Big Ten, I'm just simply saying, if Michigan State were to beat Ohio State, beat Purdue, I'm already chalking up a Maryland win. Should I do that? Is it too early?
I think you're fine
too
to
soon?
chalk up a Maryland win.
Yeah, I don't
think
know.
you're safe.
I'm a little nervous about it. I'm going to be honest with you, but they go and they beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship game. There's no way on God's green earth a Big Ten team does not get in to the college football playoffs because that would mean Michigan State beat the number, I think, 2 team
Yeah, they moved up. So yep, number
So
2.
I think they'll be the number 2 team.
Yep.
They might be 3 still. Alabama might jump them for 2 because they beat LSU.
I
And
think
Ohio
Alabama-
State will stay 3.
Clemson will be
Clemson will be 1.
You're right.
Alabama
They'll
will be
be
2.
number 3.
Ohio State will be 3.
Yep.
So that would mean that Alabama, that would mean that they beat Ohio State, the number 3 ranked team. Iowa's going to move up.
Iowa,
Iowa
yes.
will take Michigan State's 7th spot. I believe they'll probably swap.
Yes.
Michigan State will fall to like 11 or 12, still be in front of Michigan, but Iowa will move up to the 7th. So they'll have beaten the 3rd best team in the country and the 7th best team in the country, unless Iowa moves up even further to the point, because other teams are going to lose.
Which then
other
helps
teams are going
MSU's
to
resume even more.
Exactly. If you beat 2 top 5, top 6 teams in the last 2 weeks of the season or 3 weeks of the season, no chance you're getting left out of the college football playoff. Because again, other conference games. You think Florida has something to say about Alabama going to the college football playoff? I do. I think a one-loss Florida team gets in over Alabama if they beat them in the SEC championship game.
Yes.
I think that the Big 12 and the Pac-12 are the ones on the outside looking in, and then Notre Dame's the wild card.
Yeah, which I really wish they would sit there and force. This is another conversation for a different day.
I know what you're
wish
gonna
they-
say.
I wish they would force their hand and force them to get into some type of a conference, because I think it's all malarkey.
Yeah.
That they can just sit there and they can
do whatever
float
they
around
want.
and do whatever
yeah.
they want.
Now, to be fair, Notre Dame has played quite a schedule this
They
year.
do.
And they do every year for the most part.
Yeah.
They don't particularly play nothing but cream puffs and go, well, we're Notre Dame, we should be in. I mean, they traveled to Palo Alto the last game of the year. That's to me is the semifinal or the quarterfinal game of the playoff, because I think that the winner of that game gets in. Stanford being the team that, you know, if they win that game and then they win the Pac-12 title game, that they still would be one-loss team. The only loss would have been the first game of the season.
Yeah, but do you see?
That's like an Ohio State from last year type thing.
You're right.
You
So,
know?
I'm looking at the college football playoff right now. You got Clemson 1, LSU at 2 is going to drop down out of the top 4. Ohio State at 3. I think you're right. Alabama will move up to 2 with that win over LSU. But then Notre Dame and Baylor before Michigan State. Do you think the winner, if Michigan State beats Ohio State, I don't know if a Big Ten team will get into the college football playoff.
I think they would.
You guys think they
I
would?
think Jim Delaney pulls
exactly.
enough string
Yep.
and has enough clout to where they'll get put
Yep.
in.
Okay.
You
My
don't-
big question is, you're talking about Stanford right now. Where are they ranked? Can you pull that up? Is that up there? Do you have that?
Yeah, Stanford's at 11.
So they're at 11 right now. So Stanford has to win out. I don't know if Notre Dame. See that right there. I think that's the wild card.
Yeah.
That's the wild card right there. Because
Well-
I don't know if they're close enough to the top 4 to be able to sit there and get a win and get in. I don't know if it's possible. And Notre Dame, I think the committee has a thing for Notre Dame. I think they like Notre Dame. I think they want Notre Dame.
Notre Dame
I think
is
Notre Dame sells tickets, right?
Notre Dame is one of the national brands
Yeah,
you
it's
talk
name
about.
recognition.
It's up there with Michigan and it's up there with USC.
Right.
Is like something you see where you go. You could be in North Dakota and walk into a gas station and there'll be a Notre Dame hat sitting there.
That's true.
And you're like, why is this the Notre Dame hat? And but but here's Notre Dame's schedule the rest of the way. I mean, they don't play. They play Wake Forest and
Let's just go through it. Win.
Boston College the week after that,
Win.
and then they go to Stanford.
Okay.
So their best case scenario is 11-1 with a loss to the number 1 team in the country. Now, what I hate about Notre Dame is just the same thing I hate about the Big 12. There's no title game.
Yes.
And the no title game thing really makes me wonder why those teams have any business being in the college football playoff in the first place. Because if everyone else is playing an extra game, why do teams that don't have to play that extra game get to have that free pass?
And this is why I think, in the end, again, another conversation for a different day. We need to just go mega conferences here, and we'll just split the country right into quarters here, and you've got one here, one here, one here, and then you guys just battle to the death.
Well, I
Let's just
think
go.
what we're going to see, and I know it can't happen until 2020, because the college football playoff has been the way that it is. The 4 teams have been that's been carved out. But if this thing doesn't expand to 8 teams in the next time around, it has to. Because here, and everyone goes, well, there's still going to be people griping about being 9 or 10. You can make a much more,
There's always going to be somebody on the outside looking in.
But
always.
9 and 10 is much different than 5 and 6.
Exactly.
Because we're talking about, okay, if you win your conference, you're in. There's your automatic ticket. You win your conference, you're in. So 5 teams will be in. Then you have 3 at-large teams. One could be Notre Dame every year.
Yeah.
And one could be BYU or an Army, you know what I mean, if they ever got their stuff together,
yes.
whoever. But then you could also have one of those from those little five, you know, like the Memphises of the world.
Yeah.
I know they just got beat, but you have the Memphises of the world. You have the Boise States of the world. You have those teams that have great seasons, like a MAC team. What if Central goes 12-1 one year and wins the MAC, and they're like actually legitimately a good team? Give them a while. They can't. The most unfair thing about the college football playoff as it stands today is not everybody has a chance.
Right.
Now,
Absolutely
the NCAA tournament at least gives basketball and football apples and oranges. Clearly, you can have 68 teams and make that work. But I still think that right now, 4 teams, if the college football playoff and winning a national championship is the only thing that matters anymore, we're not talking about a Rose Bowl. No one cares about the Rose Bowl anymore. That stinks. I hate that.
Brady
no
Hoke
one
does.
cares. Well, Brady Hoke's unemployed. Nobody cares about that. I mean, it's nice that the last meaningful Rose Bowl game was a Michigan State victory for the Big Ten, because that will be the last Rose Bowl, the 100th Rose Bowl, that anybody cares about.
Right.
Because now a Rose Bowl is a consolation prize to, oh, you were good, but guess what? You're not that good. You're not in the college football playoff. No, if you can't, because winning a Rose Bowl title is diminished. Winning a Cotton Bowl is now diminished. Because last year, Michigan State arguably had one of the most exciting bowl game victories in the past few years. Diminished. Why? It didn't mean anything. It didn't mean a thing for the national picture. And I think that college football, I think I read a quote, I forget who said it, I think it was either Dean Smith or one of those great legendary coaches had said to a football coach back in the day, like, don't let football become basketball, as far as like,
Just how
that-
it's overpopulated.
how it's over-
there's like
yes.
68 teams. And,
exactly, and he was making reference to that, and I thought that was really unique to think, because I'm sitting here a proponent for expanding the playoffs,
Yes.
and there's
You don't want it to get
greater
too big,
minds
though.
than mine saying no.
You don't want it to get too big. I think between 8 and 16 teams, I think you can make that work. I think
16's too much.
You think?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I think 16 would be real interesting.
Maybe
think
16, maybe 12 at the highest.
So what, people are getting buys then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So your top 4 would get buys?
I hate that idea
work.
too.
I don't
hate
like-
that
I don't
idea
like- I don't
too.
like the bye
But here's
weeks,
the thing.
but-
Okay, if we're looking at that, pull up that.
But I don't think you can get any larger than what we're saying, 16. I think that if you go any bigger than this, now you're diluting it, and the
Well,
product.
and
is weak.
here's one thing that I think needs to be brought up is that all of this doesn't really matter right now. I mean, what Ohio State at this time last year was ranked in
Exactly.
below the top 10.
Right.
The
I
whole
think
thing
in
is
below
you
the
just
top
have to
15.
win. You
Yeah.
have to
Well,
win.
and that's
it does
what
is
it is.
allows us to sit here and allows us to sit around and have these interesting conversations.
I mean, and what's great about Iowa's now the 8th best team in the country, according to the AP and the coaches. So again, if Michigan State can somehow beat Ohio State, which I'm telling you, if that loss to Nebraska didn't light a fire that they haven't seen in a few, you got to remember, Michigan State has gone 31-3 with Connor Cook. So now he's 31-4. They've won a ton of games. The 33 games in a row when they led in the fourth quarter was snapped. That winning streak was snapped. 15 games on the road, or not 15. I think it was 15 games on the road since they've lost on a Big Ten road opponent. They're not used to. This particular team is not used to losing games. So their bounce back, if it's what the players and what you would, as if you're a Michigan State fan, you envision your players coming out and playing with fire this next couple weeks. You envision them saying, our dreams were almost taken away from us. But they haven't been yet. That's something that you also have to take solace in. Did they want to lose that game? No. Are they happy that they lost the game? Absolutely not. However, if this can't light that fire for them to go into Columbus and get that win, nothing will.
Yeah.
If they weren't embarrassed by what happened, there's something else wrong there.
Right.
They expect them to come out, like you said, on fire, like their hair has been set ablaze.
I think so.
And watch them rip up the rest of this season.
Mm-hmm.
Watch.
And I don't.
What they're going to have to count is they're going to have to count on some help from Michigan.
Well,
if
and here's
Michigan can go pop Ohio State, then hey, now we have a really interesting discussion here. We've got something to talk about, and I think at that point, like you said, their destiny's in their hand.
Yeah. I mean,
want to. Sorry.
go ahead. No.
I was going to say we've got a ton of questions.
All right.
coming in. So
Rattle 'em off.
I was going to do a little rapid fire. From Vinny, was the call wrong in the Nebraska game? I thought the refs were in a decent game.
Yes, absolutely.
The call was
it
wrong.
an awful call.
I mean, here's the thing, Vinny,
Absolutely awful
and not just to say it's an awful call and move on from it. I do want to explain the rules. The rule is if a player is forced out of bounds by a defender, physically forced,
pushed.
forced
Off
out
screen.
of bounds, off the screen, then he can re-enter as long as he establishes 2 feet in bounds. The catch would have been legal because he did, and then the touchdown would have scored. But when a referee throws his hat off, that means the player has left the field of play, whether, and the thing is it's a flag if he's forced out of bounds and the ball is caught to him. No flag came out. So when a hat goes off, the referee is signifying to everyone else on the field, that guy is no longer eligible to play, to catch the ball first. He cannot be the first player to touch it. Now, if he would have gone out of bounds on his own and that ball would have somehow gotten tipped by Edmondson and it bounced up in the air and then the guy caught it, it would have been a legal play of him going on the bounds on his own accord. The fact that Edmondson was looking back and they were running together. Look, there's always going to be contact between a receiver and a cornerback.
Yeah.
That's the way it works. You don't just run next to each other and be like, I can't touch you.
And it was defended well.
It was defended.
He
The
defended it
sideline.
perfectly. He did his job. He funneled him to the outside.
Exactly, and he did his job, and he didn't force him out of bounds.
No.
So the call was wrong. The Big Ten. I have a little bit of a theory. That was the same officiating crew of the Michigan game. That is the Big Ten's #1 officiating crew. I think that the Big Ten backed their referees over backing a program.
That's
and
exactly
here's the
what they
thing.
did.
I would have loved to see that happen to Ohio State this year. Only because I bet my last $18 that
It had been reversed.
it would have been, the Big Ten would have said, that was the wrong call, Ohio State. Here's the thing that no one's talking about, guys. If the Big Ten, if a scenario plays out, say Michigan State loses to Ohio State, Michigan beats Ohio State, they go to the Big Ten championship game, lose to Iowa or something, and Iowa's resume is just not good enough, or Michigan wins. However it turns out, if Michigan State or Ohio State are not going to go to the college football playoff, that costs the conference $6 million. When you're included, the conference gets a paycheck. Well, thanks for playing.
And as we go back to last week, it's all about money.
It's all about the money. So if there's no Big Ten representation, $6 million because the referees potentially got involved.
Next one from Kimberly. Can MSU still get into the playoff? Yeah, we went over that. Yeah. They still can.
Win out. The same goals are in front of them. They just have to win out, and they can make the playoffs.
It's just a little bit more hard. That's all. Just a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
That's it.
One from Rick. Kicking game continues to plague MSU. Why? William Davis. What are the chances of Michigan beating Ohio State? And Tiffany, what was up with that terrible third down play call from MSU? Should they have thrown for the first down instead of running?
We said something.
I mean, here's the thing. Connor Cook has won you a whole lot of football games, and the fact that you didn't put the ball game, that was the winning play. You make a play on third down.
Was it 3rd and 8?
3rd and 8.
Yep.
If you make a play on third down, you win the game. Michigan State played not to lose instead of to win the game. That was a play call that, and Connor Cook, to his credit, was asked after the game, would you have rather had the ball in your hands on third down? And he looked at the media, and I'm sure it was Joe Rexrode, or one of the great Spartan beat writers, that asked that question. And he said to him, you guys can't ask me that question. That's not fair.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to throw my coaches under the bus. Because I bet you Connor Cook would have been like, you're darn right I wanted the ball in my hands. I complete more third down passes than any other quarterback in college football. And you're not going to give me an opportunity to win the game? Come on. That's the part where that really boils me, because it's like, look, you get a first down. It's the same thing with Michigan during the Michigan State game. They get a first down there. They don't play it conservatively and run those 3 plays and have to punt. That miracle play
The game's over.
never happens.
You don't have to worry about it.
It's over.
Yep.
The fact that Harbaugh didn't, and now I know it's apples and oranges again, different personnel, different players, those types of things. But when you have the winningest quarterback in your school's history, who has the best third down completion rating in the country, I'm going to roll the dice with him instead of handing it off to a 289-pound tight end on a poorly underloaded side of the. It was just such
a bad play call.
And the thing is,
wasn't good at
a 289-pounder isn't going to evade many players. No. So one guy gets in the backfield, and that's all it was. It wasn't like he was gang tackled. It was one guy got to him, and he couldn't shake it or edge him out. Now, if you run that play to Burbridge or Shelton, maybe you have a little bit more success with it. But the fact you have Lyles back there, Michigan State has to be kicking itself, and the coaches have to really reevaluate what they were doing, because I thought that was a poorly managed game, especially down the end.
I want your opinion on this, and yours too, Max. Do you think that coaches get so wrapped up in those final moments of games? Because you just brought up 2 points, right? There was the MSU-Michigan game where Harbaugh basically got really conservative, like you said, and they played for the punt, all right? And now in this game, you're sitting there and you're doing your little handoff in the backfield to a tight end who in his 3rd and 8, and you're not getting the yardage you need. Do you think that they get so wrapped up in these games and in those final moments that they just don't see it clearly and they just make poor decisions?
I think it's tough because, again, you're playing against the play clock. I think that's part of it. Is you're making a snap decision. You don't want to take a timeout there because you don't want to stop the clock.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I think that Dave Warner, the offensive coordinator, or Jim Boland, I don't like Jim Boland. I'm kind of getting sick of his shtick. We're going to run the football. I kind of want to move on from him, right. if I may. I'm sure that was his call. And look, when you're offensive coordinators, there's a trust between coaches, the head coach especially. Now, Mark D'Antonio didn't call that play.
No.
He had the final veto
Exactly.
of that play.
He could have
and I
canceled
bet
it out.
you he said this: "We've won a lot of football games. We're going to roll with my coaches. I'm going to trust my coaches on this one." Now, I would love to, honestly, I'd love to be a fly on the wall with D'Antonio in his house going, "That was a terrible call. I cannot believe that they called that, and I can't believe that I let that roll."
Well, see, my thing is
That's my thing.
Hindsight's always 20/20, but I think if they don't get it, they put their faith in their defense. And who thinks that Nebraska is going to drive 90-something yards?
I did.
But at that
You
point in
thought
that game,
especially-
they had ran up and down the field on MSU the entire game.
Can I ask a question? Pick me. When's the last time a prevent defense ever stopped anybody?
That's
The only thing a prevent defense does is prevent you from winning.
it stops. It works in Madden, but it doesn't work in real life.
No.
It is the worst defense in the world. This reminded me of the 2009 Iowa-Michigan State game in East Lansing, and Iowa's having a great season, and they had to go 90 yards in like a minute and 5 seconds, and they did it, and they ran that stupid prevent defense. And the problem with the prevent defense is the linebackers never go deep enough, so it's just that 20-yard passes are wide open, but they make the tackle.
Just drop it in. Just drop it.
They
above.
make the tackle because they don't want anyone to get behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, if you don't let anybody if you don't have anybody in front to, I'm not even going to go with that. All right, let's turn our attention to Michigan. They definitely deserve some cred for what they did, just dismantling Rutgers at home. I was at that game, and it was just interesting at the beginning because they get the ball and they fumble on the first snap, and it was just like, don't you tell me that this is like what you're going to let happen.
Well, so the first thing I thought when I saw that, because that happened right in front of us, we were sitting right in that end zone corner, and I'm like, he threw that ball forward. He did, and that was what I thought, just from my view. He threw it forward, but then also when they turned that call over, I knew that was the end of the game. Like if that's how Rutgers is going to start their game, that's it for them. And then Rudock drove down the field, and they,
Jake Rudock's progression is probably the biggest thing that I'm going to take away from. And this is the scary part if you're looking bigger picture. Like, again, still think that this Michigan team is somewhat limited offensively against good defenses or better teams in general. But 337 yards was a career high for Jake Rudock, who had 3 seasons at Iowa and never had that before in that high-flying offense and how they do things over in the cornfields. The fact that Jim Harbaugh is taking this guy who's limited, we can all agree that he's a limited quarterback, and giving him this type of power and this type of ability to perform. I mean, he threw for 2 touchdowns, and he ran for 2-point conversion and a touchdown, I think.
His job right now is just to not to lose the game.
Well,
right?
a quarterback rating of 99.4,
He had
18
a
of
heck of a
25,
game.
He played
330.
outstanding.
And that's
there were
coaching.
3 to 4 drops too that those wide
That is
receivers had.
coaching all day long. Jim Harbaugh is going to take these freshmen or these transfers or whoever he gets, and he can make these guys great.
He's a QB
and
whisperer,
that's the thing that's like, you got to be, as a Michigan fan, you got to be really excited. I think that, who was I talking to on my way over here? You put Connor Cook in Michigan's offense right now?
Night and day.
Holy smokes, with that defense and that offense, with that type of quarterback, you're talking national championship stuff in Ann Arbor. I mean, and I think that's what fans are excited about. I think that you should be excited about that type of thing, simply because, we've seen the proof is in the pudding from the first year. It'll be interesting to see how the recruits develop. I think, obviously, we've seen that he can coach them up.
I mean, how traditional is that offense, too? I mean, they're handing the ball off to 2 different fullbacks.
What the best thing about the Michigan offense is the play calling is so good. They have guys that are wide open because they're running formations, and then they'll come back to it, and then they'll do something totally different. And, I mean, I don't know how many times there was uncovered guys in the backfield of Rutgers because they were just, like, all over the place.
And not just
it's
the Rutgers
so
game.
good.
Not just the Rutgers game. If you go back to the very first game of the season against Utah, if Jake Rudock would have hit J.U. Chesson, I think on 3 different occasions where Chesson was behind
Yeah.
the defense,
He
he
went
just
to-
overthrew it or he underthrew it every
Yeah.
time. That game would have been totally different. Totally
Well,
different.
that's still his weakness, and I still think that's where the
doesn't have the
limitation.
touch,
He doesn't have the
right.
touch. He'll never have the touch.
Well,
I mean, that's just.
I think we saw that in Rutgers too, because from my view in the stadium is that there were a couple times where Chesson was open downfield and he hit Jake Rudock short or Jake Button short instead. Now they still turned into 20-yard gains, but he
Right.
had Chesson open 30
I
yards
think
downfield.
Chesson is probably super. I get the feeling he's underrated. Like, you don't hear enough about him. The guy has so much speed. He burns every defender that you put on him.
Yeah.
He gets behind them all the time. It's just limited by his quarterback.
Yeah.
Because his quarterback can't get him the ball and can't get it to the spot that it has to be at.
Well, and the thing
One-
about Chesson is he is a senior, so he's going to be done. But I think that he can probably find some life at the next level
Yes.
with what he's got.
You
6'3",
just need somebody to
207.
sit there and maybe help him develop a little
Yeah.
bit more. I think that he was hampered by the previous coaching staff that was here.
Mhm.
I think what you've seen with Jim Harbaugh is that he's helped build upon his talent and done quite well.
Jason Rose just tweeted at me. I don't know who that is, but he's got a great last name.
Is
He's
your
going
brother?
to be your brother.
And it's funny because Jason is the name that everybody calls me when they don't hear my name fully. When I say, like, oh, I'm Justin Rose. I'm like, hey, Jason. It's Justin. There's a
Better
T
than-
there.
They call me Matt. I
Oh,
called Matt
gosh.
as much as I'm Max.
Jason, I'm gonna like that tweet. By the way, can I just talk about how I hate Twitter, how they changed from favorites to likes?
Oh, yeah.
Well, so
There's nothing more demasculating than being like,
A heart.
heart.
Yeah.
sports producer Mike Foss said the Carolina Hurricanes or some team trolled the Dallas Stars and called them the Dallas Hearts on Twitter when they turned the star to the heart. So good on. I love when the teams get in a little social media fights.
And Jason, don't ever do this whole D'Antonio thing. I'm sick of that. I love this Matt Derry account. He told me it was his real name. He said he wasn't trolling or making a false
not a parody.
Matt Derry from 105.1. It's MSU injuries on defense caught up with them. MSU has no chance against Ohio State. I disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with that is because Ohio State's not.
They're not firing on all cylinders.
No.
What makes you feel like they're some great team right now?
No.
They're absolutely not. You've got a quarterback who's getting cited for what, OUIL or whatever it is, or operating a
Yeah.
vehicle while impaired. You've got whatever's going on with Cardell Jones. Apparently he's not good enough. You've got, I just don't, that offense doesn't scare me like it should. It scared me when they played Virginia Tech, when you got to see Braxton Miller go out there and just cut people up like he was Edward Scissorhands. All right? Then I was a little
Good
bit
90s
nervous.
reference. I like that.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you.
I was a little nervous there. But what I've seen over the past couple weeks, not terrified at all. I think if MSU can sit there and hang with them on the defensive end, I think they'll be fine. I think I like Connor Cook a lot better than I like whatever quarterback you're going to put in for Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to come down to what the coaches do, I think, as well, putting the kids in the best position to succeed. And that's going to be one of the most scrutinized positions for me because, look, we know what MSU is talent-wise. We know where they are talent-wise. They have probably less talent, at least experienced talent, than Ohio State does at this particular junction in time. I would agree. I don't think I'm going too far in saying that. I mean, Michigan State's good, but Ohio State right now has their no injuries. They're they're playing with the guys that they came into the season playing with, whereas Michigan State has got some
haven't
young
had to
guys
overcome
back there,
anything
and that's where I think that Michigan State has that edge. If you're giving me an intangibles edge, because right now I'm going offense is even.
Mm-hmm.
All things considered, offenses are even. Ezekiel Elliott makes a little bit more of a difference out of the backfield for Ohio State, but offenses are even.
Yeah.
I give the edge defensively, of course, to Ohio State. Their kicking game has been very poor. Theirs as well. Their special teams is probably even, both pretty bad. And I think that if you have that intangible edge, I think you give it to Michigan State. They've battled adversity. They've had their backs against the wall in every game that they've played. They know how to play when there's a lot on the line. Ohio State has had one time where they've been pressured when Indiana was going down the field on the last drive, and they were still a touchdown up. So even if they would have scored, the game would have been over. It would have gone to overtime. I just feel like this loss for Michigan State gets them into a mindset of, we know what it feels like again to lose. This team had not lost since they lost to Ohio State last year.
And I think that's going to play to their advantage.
I think so too.
I think them coming out and basically laying an egg against Nebraska is it's going to help this team in the long run. I think down the line here, when you see this Michigan State-Ohio State game, because that's what we're all looking forward to, let's be honest, all right? We're not counting anything here in the middle. This is what we're looking forward to. So when this game gets going, and if Michigan falls behind by 7, 10, 14 points, I'm not going to be nervous because they know how to play in that position. On the other hand, if Ohio State gets down early,
like they did
I
last
think
year,
you're going to see them right. You're going to see them spinning their wheels. They're not going to know what to do. They've had to do nothing.
I've been thinking about this element since the beginning of the season too. Ohio State came into that game last year with that, I don't want to say chip on the shoulder, but they had that motivation because Michigan State beat them the year before and took away their title dreams. Well, they did that to Michigan. Ohio State came back and did that to Michigan State last year. Well, now Michigan State, with no room for error, has their title dreams, and let's not kid ourselves. This is Michigan State's last chance for a national championship for at least 3 years. I mean, no doubt about it. In my opinion, this is it. It's now or maybe never.
Yeah.
Because
the quarterback that you have coming in next year,
he's young. You're not going to win with a freshman quarterback.
I mean,
Ohio State, barring Ohio State won with a bunch of seniors and a freshman quarterback. But this team is going to get a lot younger next year. They're going to lose a lot of senior leadership. Michigan State's expectations next year for me, they're dialing way back. So they know that they're going to. And I always said, I think that when you're on top, it's hard to. That's why repeating in any sport is so impossible. It almost is impossible because you just don't have that same drive, that same fire, that same hunger. Yeah. We won it, man. We got it. We're good. Everyone thinks we're the greatest. And it's like, nah.
When you're the king, you get fat and lazy.
Fat and lazy. Fat and sassy.
When you're the peasant, man, you want to eat. You're hungry.
I got another tweet I got to get to. Yeah, I agree with that, Ralph. He said that he wasn't too upset with the loss. Nebraska tough, but should D'Antonio, guys, you're killing me, take some heat for poor coaching? Yes, we already talked about that. But this one here, Lance Jackson calling you out by name for all MSU fans. # karma, haha, # little brother always. Lance, get a job, dude. Like, I mean, come on, man.
Look,
I'm so sick and tired of this little brother thing. Michigan fans have every right to be happy that Michigan State lost. As a Michigan State fan myself, I'm happy when Michigan loses, but at the same time, like, I don't go and gloat about it.
Yeah, I think it's tasteless. I'm a huge.
You're a diehard. You're a diehard. I always hear it from this guy.
I'm a huge Michigan fan. All right, but I'm tired of the little brother thing myself. It's
played out. It's boring.
I mean, all you got to do is say 7 of 8, and you know what that means.
Yeah.
7 of 8. All right?
How's that feel, Lance?
We haven't won anything in 7 out of those 8 matches. And the one that we did, it was a kickoff. It was like you sat there and you kicked 4 field goals. Come on, it was 12-10 win.
Yeah, that was
which is crap.
And
there's nothing to be proud of there.
No. And look, the tide is turning. Don't get me wrong, Michigan fans. Don't get me wrong. I am absolutely in total favor of Michigan going to be better again.
Michigan State fans have to buckle up because this is going to be a wild ride.
Every single year.
You've got 2 great coaches that want to kill each other, and now you factor in Ohio State. This is going to be awesome.
It's going to be great.
The Big Ten is going to be incredible.
It's going to be very, very
fun.
It's going to be fun. And that's the great thing. But we're flying by. Keep those tweets coming in. J Rose, WXYZ. Adam, let me get yours. Adam, ADAMR STROZ on Twitter. Max White, WXYZ as well.
We got a couple good questions.
Couple questions. Bring them on.
One from Hank. What does U of M have to improve on next season to get to the playoff? And Layla, what is the ceiling for Jabril Peppers? Does he win Heisman in Michigan?
Yeah, I want to talk to you about that because I watched the
sports game yesterday.
I did.
Cats and
I like that question. Well, I'll answer the first one first because it's easy. Quarterback play. I think they need a better quarterback. They need somebody in there who has I don't want to say a pro touch, but has a little bit of a touch because, like we talked about before, J.U. Cheston's blowing by people, and he's way back there. And we have a quarterback who either alligators the ball to him, or he just overthrows him completely. He doesn't have touch there. So I think a better quarterback is what will take this team to the next level. But Jabril Peppers, I like where you're going with that. And I know Katzenstein kind of poo-pooed it a little bit.
Yeah.
All right. But I think this guy could be something special. It's really going to depend. He reminds me a lot, and I said this last year when I got to see him play in bits and pieces. He reminds me a lot of what Chuck Woodson was.
Yeah.
I've heard him as Chuck. I love Chuck. Chuck's my man. All right. So he reminds me a lot of Chuck. All right. And Charles was great, and I get pumped every time I see Charles in his Oakland Raiders uniform with his little bald spot going on.
Mm-hmm.
I love Chuck. All right, but he reminds me a lot of what Chuck did for that '97 team, where he would sit there. He wouldn't play every down on offense, but when you put him in there, he was a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
He was a factor.
And
you had to account for him being on the field at all times, whether he got the ball or not.
And we're seeing that already. We're
Yes.
seeing that already with him because Jim Harbaugh even admitted after the game, the touchdown that Peppers had, he goes, that play was dead in the backfield.
It was a busted play.
It was a busted play, and he goes, we're going to
Took
be
it 18 yards to the house.
And I love the fact that every time he's back on a punt return, you're going, kick away from him. And I love that every time he's back in the defense. And I need to see more from him on the defensive side besides tackling. The tackling's great. Don't get me wrong. I think he leads the team in tackles, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. I don't know that stat, so don't quote me on it. Maxwell, look that up for me, would you?
Gotcha.
But I need to see more interception play. It's harder to do at safety than it is at corner. But I think that he has that and the comparison that Katzenstein made to it is he goes, well, Tyrann Mathieu couldn't win the Heisman because the game has changed. It's an offensive game.
It is.
But if Peppers can be a two-way player, a true two-way player with 4, 5, 6 touchdowns on special teams, with a couple of contributions offensively, and give me 6 to 10 picks. Come on.
This is what he needs. This is what he needs to win a Heisman. He needs basically 2 things to win it. Keep doing what he's doing, but he needs 2 moments. He needs his MSU moment, where Chuck had his MSU moment where he went up on the sidelines and one-handed the interception, and he needs his David Boston moment. Remember when Chuck and David Boston got into it and grabbed each other's face masks and they sat there and whipped each other around the field? You need that leadership. You need to demonstrate that leadership. You need to show that. And you need to be able to sit there and make a big interception in a big game when it really counts. Those are the 2 moments he needs. If he can do something like that, I think we have a legit Heisman candidate. I think there's something there to be talked about.
No, I don't disagree with that at all. I love the idea of him playing, and that's what every team wishes they could have, a guy that could do it all. And I like that Michigan's getting him more and more involved. I think that you'll see a ton of him against Ohio State.
Yes.
He played 90 plays against Minnesota last week. He was hampered. Harbaugh did admit he was a little fighting a little something, so he took him off kickoff returns, but he's still out there.
And I don't think that you've seen – I think he's being held back by this coaching staff right now. And what I mean by that is I don't think they're sitting there and they're opening up the entire playbook, and I think they're saving a lot of it for the OSU game. When OSU comes around, watch them to be on the field a lot more and a lot more crazy setups and a lot more crazy schemes. Because I think right now is they're just they're working on a few things. Like, all right, well, let's get some timing down. Let's get you out there on doing this. Let's do this. And they're just I think you're just scratching the surface on what this coaching staff wants to do with him and how they want to develop him.
Well, and I think part of that, and maybe more of the reason I think, is just they don't want to wear him down.
Right.
I mean, when he's on offense, he's going to get hit, and he's going to get hit hard. Football's a tough game. And then when he's on defense, he's going to hit people hard. And then especially, if he's returning punts, if he gets hit on punts, those are some violent collisions. And I'm afraid, or not I'm afraid, but I think the coaching staff is thinking that, we don't need him to get injured. So I do think they're holding him back, but offense-wise, saying they're not going to show everything away for the Ohio State game, but I also think, they don't want to lose him. He's their most dynamic player. And for tackles-wise, he has 32 total tackles. It is 4th best.
Who's number 1?
Desmond Morgan, 57. Joe Bolden, 56.
Linebackers.
Jared Wilson.
Typical linebackers.
40, and tied with Jordan Lewis for 32.
Okay, 10 minutes left in the show. Wow.
Wow, that fast.
Very quick. We have to talk about the Lions. I mean, come on, they fired their president and their general manager, and we're getting into them 50 minutes into the show.
Did everybody rip their shirt open like they were Superman? The moment
right.
That happened? Like,
Yeah.
I felt like I had a cape on and I was flying around.
Well, look, it was an inevitable thing, and I don't want to talk about the breakup because it's already over. It's been over for a while now. I'm all about talking about what the next move is. And I've said this before, and I'll probably say it again, either on the Suburban 47 Sports Cave, here on this show, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. This is the most important hire, general manager and president, and I think it should be the same guy for both, in the team's history.
Do you have faith in Martha Ford to make that hire, though?
I don't think it's going to be in Martha Ford's hands. I think it's going to be either a search firm, a hired search firm, or I think that the NFL is going to interject with the permission of the Lions.
Right there.
And I think that's where you have to go with this, because again, Martha Ford, look, Martha, call me, I'll do it, because I'll work for a year, hire the right people, and then get out, and I'll take that nice seven-figure paycheck.
Well, of course.
It'll be fine. But that's where it has to go.
It has to go there.
Yeah.
I think we're in lockstep here. She can't make the hire, and nobody inside that organization can make the hire.
No.
What has to happen is they have to go outside. They have to get people who know football. I like what she's doing so far. I've been very impressed, and all you can do is you can judge her. You can't judge her for what Mr. Ford did. You can't judge her for what Bill Ford Jr.'s done. You can't judge her for her daughter, or her daughter-in-law, or whoever it is going to do. You can't judge her for that. What you can do is you can judge her for what she's done thus far. And thus far, she's done things that no other Lions ownership has ever done. She's gone in, and I'm going to tell you this. Those coaches that were fired after the show that we did, 2 weeks ago? That was all her. That was not Jim Caldwell.
Yeah.
That was not Jim Caldwell. That was all her. She pulled Jim into her office and said, look, either you're going to do this or I'm going to do it, and you're gone too. And he was like, all right, I'll let him go. So those guys got shipped out because of Martha. Martha then comes in and she's swinging Thor's hammer and she's busting stuff up. And you never, ever have seen a president and a general manager get fired mid-season like this, ever. I mean, Matt Millen did get fired in the middle of the season, but Matt Millen had a reign of terror that will be unmatched and unrivaled in years in history to ever come. All right?
Yeah.
So what happened there, that is a completely different situation. You've never seen a Lions president or owner come in and do what she's done thus far, which gives me hope that we will actually be a winning football product in a few years.
Yeah, and the thing is what it comes down to me philosophically, I don't care who it is. I don't care who it is. As long as this person has the ability to scout properly and evaluate talent, that's all I care about. Because for so long, we've seen just wins. Name me one guy besides Calvin Johnson and Ndamukong Suh who have come into the league in Detroit and have been all pro, or have been even above the line, as Mike Tomlin used to say, or still does say.
I think there's only maybe one other player, and that's Ziggy Ansah in a way, but that's it.
That's it.
I mean,
if you're going to go with
so like
eight to 12 players a year in the draft, give or take, depending on your picks, over 5 years, that's like 45 to 60 players. You got one.
Well,
and Calvin Johnson obviously falls into your lap. He's a bona fide, he's one of those can't miss players that you.
That year you had two picks. It was either AP or it was Calvin.
Right.
And AP was coming off of a collarbone issue.
Right.
So you're right. Calvin fell right into your lap.
And if you wanted to compare those two careers, I mean, they're both the same.
Yes.
To me, they're different positions, so it is apples and oranges. But neither have won a Super Bowl. Playoffs appearances have been spotty for both teams, so it is what it is. But they have to be able to evaluate talent, and they have to be able to find somebody who knows football, as you said. I completely agree, because you can't win. And I loved your article about the second round misses, and the third round misses, and the fourth round misses, and the fifth round misses.
That was just misses. Yeah, like you said, was just misses in general. I mean, there's no player. So the article is still up on WXYZ.com, but I mean, there's no players from the 2010 or 2011 draft. There are, it's just sparse. And then stuff I didn't put in the article just because I didn't want to make Lions fans even angrier than they should have been by reading that article. But instead of drafting, Louis Talmadge or other players, they could have drafted, Le'Veon Bell. They could have drafted Rob Gronkowski.
That's the best part. Going back and seeing who they could have or should have
so
took,
bad.
That's so much fun.
Eric Ebron, 3 picks later.
Aaron Donald.
There's a guy named Odell Beckham Jr. You may have heard of him. He had like a catch.
They needed to
They drafted Aaron Donald.
They drafted so poorly for positionary needs, and this is where it goes back to understanding football. And I don't think Martin Mayhew understands football, because again, I do agree to take the best available talent to a certain degree. Like, if Eric Ebron
but
was...
you don't ever draft a tight end in the first round. No good teams do this. Where did you get Jimmy Graham? Jimmy Graham was a third-round pick.
Right.
Antonio Gates, I think he was like a fifth-round pick.
Yeah, sixth round, actually.
Okay, sixth round pick. You don't do it, and those are like two of the best tight ends in the league right now.
Right.
do it
You don't.
ever.
You don't do that.
Just don't.
And and again, that comes down to those people making those decisions. And I think that at the end of the day, you got to get people in there who are going to make these right decisions.
And that was the thing that hampered Martin Mayhew. That was the dumb thing about promoting him. He had no system in place to be able to evaluate talent. When he brought Brian Zanders in for one specific reason, the reason why Brian Zanders was brought in was so he could set up a way to evaluate talent. And that was what Brian Zanders did. And if you look at from the moment that Brian Zanders was brought in, and you watch how those draft classes followed after that, they did get a little bit better. I mean, it's not a ton better, but they did get a little bit better because now they had a system in place to evaluate talent. I really believe what they would do is they would watch ESPN and go by what Mel Kiper and Todd McShay said. And they're like, all right, well, yeah, they got the thumbs up there. Let's take that guy.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
The biggest difference Brian Sanders made to me is not in the first-round pick because with him they did take Eric Ebron and then they did take Tom. But they
you
took
got to look
Darius
at who's the final
Slay.
say there.
Well, and they
And I
second
think
round they
I think
took
those were Mayhews.
Darius Slay, and then third round they took Larry Warford, still guys with
Right.
the team. You know, it's been he's where the Lions used to miss. They've hit in a sense now. Are Darius Slay and Larry Warford great picks? Or great players, not great, but they're good players, and they do what they need to do, and that's where the Lions used to miss in the second and third round,
And that
they've hit.
goes back to what you were saying, Justin. They have to be able to evaluate talent. They have to be able to bring some scheme in, some type of a system to be able to address talent and the needs that this team needs. Because, let's be honest, guys, this just goes to a draft philosophy that I have. You need to draft a quarterback every single year. Every year. I don't care that you have Matt Stafford. I don't care that you guys love Matt Stafford or hate Matt Stafford. All right, he's your quarterback. He's your starter. You need to draft a quarterback every single year because what will end up happening is you're going to run into a situation like you have right now where Matt Stafford just isn't getting the job done. If you have a guy who's in your system, being developed, being worked on all the time, he might hit. My prime example is Tom Brady. Tom Brady was a little-known sixth-round pick out of U of M who was way too skinny, way too slow, and didn't have a great arm. And now he's the winningest quarterback of all time, pretty much. NFL. He's going to go down in the NFL as one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And he was a sixth-round pick that New England was like, yeah, okay, we need a quarterback. Let's just take a flyer on it.
I
need to draft a quarterback.
I hear what you're saying. I don't think you do one every year. I think that's a wasted pick.
No, dude.
Because you're gonna.
What are you gonna get for your seventh-round pick, anyways? What are you looking for?
A playmaker.
You take a flyer.
You take a play.
Here,
You don't get a Tom Brady.
Tom Brady is a one in a lifetime. That's the thing.
I agree.
But
unless you roll the dice, you don't know if you're going to get that.
But at the same time, you could go up and down the board from wide receiver to running back to lineman to defense. Every position has had a seventh, eighth rounder who's gone all pro or done all these great things. So I hear what you're saying, and the thing is like, look, they should have cut bait with Kellen Moore probably 2 years ago.
Yes.
They should have said, okay, this is experiment, because that's what you're saying. Okay, draft a quarterback every year. If you draft a quarterback every year and he understands the system, you give him a year or two. But that's the thing. You're only giving him 1 year. You're saying in your rookie campaign, hey, you're not going to play, but you're going to be in our backup system. We're going to draft another guy next year, and you're going to have to be better than him. Well, you're going to be better than him because simply he has 1 more year of NFL experience. You can't do it every year. I hear what you're saying, but you can't do it every year. I think every other year is legitimate. Like, that's a legitimate, like, okay, we like this guy to Delaware State, Joe Flacco. We'll take him in the 5th round. Okay, he turns out to be pretty good. So, Ben Roethlisberger was second round pick, first round pick?
I thought Ben was a first.
Was Ben a first round pick?
He was first round out of Miami, Ohio there.
Yeah. I don't know.
I think he was the first.
Yeah, you're right, he was. I'm not even thinking straight right about that.
My whole thing is you need to get the pieces in here, and you have to get the talents, and you need a way to judge the talents. And they don't have that right now, so I think it was a great decision to sit there and blow those 2 guys out. And everybody's upset. Why is Caldwell still here?
Got to have somebody run the team.
Somebody to run the team.
Got to have somebody run the team.
You need a little bit of consistency for those players because if you don't have that, it's all going to fall apart. And it's already starting to crumble. But you need somebody to kind of keep it together for the next 8 weeks, and that's what he's there for. He's basically your maintenance man.
Yep.
You think he stays with the team at the end of the season?
No. They're gonna cut bait with him because the new organization is going to come in
bring their own guy.
They're going to demand their own guy.
Yeah.
All right, that is all the time we have. It stinks that we don't have time to talk about the Pistons. What an unbelievable win they had last night in Portland. The Red Wings as well. They got some Hall of Famers going into the Hall of Fame today. Nick Lidstrom, Sergei Fedorov, totally deserving of such honors, and did wonders for the fans of the Detroit Red Wings here in Detroit and across the country. Adam, once again, thanks for joining me. We'll have you back here very soon, if not next week, the week after. Thanks for getting all your questions in on Twitter and to Max on our Facebook page. We'll do this again next week, and keep an eye. If you want to watch this again or share this with your friends, it'll be on our website, WXYZ.com, in the next couple of hours that you can share with people to get more people to join us, because the conversation is only good when you guys out there are helping us spur things along and asking us the questions you want answered. So we appreciate your time today. Have a great Monday, great week. Go Green, go Blue, go Lions, and Red Wings and Pistons. I think that Pistons Golden State game is going to be must-see TV.
Dude, that's going to be a great game.
Great game. It's going to be
a good litmus test right there.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to say that, it's 5-1. It's maybe it'll shaky 5-1 for the Pistons, but if they go out there and at least put a game with those guys, that team's playing so high level. If they can match that, buy your tickets for the Palace, baby. They're coming home.
I want to see how they defend Steph Curry. That's what I want to see. I want to see how they handle him. That guy is so
He's
hot
so
right
good.
now.
He's so good. But that is it. I appreciate it. Adam, thanks again. Maxwell, as always, thank you. We'll see you next week.